So, I want to make a video to say something when it comes to the DUI guy. Because, you know, a point that he ended up making, because I've been arguing about, the sexism variable when it comes to the perception of, sexual assault survivors as well as domestic abuse survivors, and ultimately the way that end up getting perceived based on gender orientation, sexuality, as well as, you know, gender identity. So, ultimately, you know, my life ended up going ahead and imploding because of the factor of a point that I ended up making when I was younger. All right. And people wanted to go ahead and take it extremely out of context. All right. Now, keep in mind, I haven't been a stranger to fighting in cases of self defense. All right. When you got to fight and you're cornered, you're going to have to fight. There are some situations that no matter how much you are told, no matter what, because one mistake that my family ended up making was going ahead and telling me, if somebody goes ahead and tries to corner you to fight you, you're not even allowed to defend yourself. If you swing back, I will call the police on you just as fast as I would call the police on the other person. All right? Not even, well, who swung first? Was the person intentionally antagonizing you repeatedly to try to, provoke you? Ultimately, could the fight have been avoided? That whole situation. All right. I ended up in a scenario where I ended up drinking with somebody when I was younger. It was a female. Ultimately, she ended up going ahead and just going to beat the fuck out of me. Now, keep in mind, she was the one who wanted to drink. I was like, cool. With us drinking, I wasn't looking for anything to happen. I wasn't expecting anything to happen. She was grieving somebody who had just passed away. I had just gotten to know them and not even that well. And, I thought they were pretty laid back, pretty, chill. And, I understand everybody has their own personal fights, you know? So when you end up coming at the tail end of somebody's story, you can't really go ahead and make determining variables, on who's right and who's wrong in a situation. But, you know, she ends up going ahead, asking me to drink. I'm like, sure. End up going ahead, getting some vodka. She wants to play a drinking game, Harry Potter, and I'm like, cool. Love Harry Potter. I mean, hell, I've even got a tattoo for the Deathly Hallows on my ankle. I mean, I always had my head buried in a book as a kid. So, she ends up going ahead and pulling a knife and wants to go ahead and cut herself. Now, keep in mind, we're the only two people there. She's drunk. I'm drunk. She has a knife. I get the knife away from her. Alright? Keep in mind, I didn't even forcibly get the knife away from her. I mean, she's literally crying, and with her being drunk, she doesn't even have a tight grip on it. So I take the knife away. I go ahead and put it under the pillow and go ahead and lay on it and use my head as weight. Alright? So she starts getting angry, starts telling me, give me the knife back, give me the knife back. And I say, no, considering the fact that you were just talking about cutting yourself on, and you're drunk right now, I'm not giving you the knife back. Wait till you sober up, And she goes and says, I'll make you take it back. I'll make you give it back. And I'm like, listen, you do what you gotta do, but, I'm not giving you the knife back. If you end up getting hurt, I'm not having that on my conscience. So she starts laying in haymakers on me, just straight up, left, right, like just straight to the fucking jaw. Alright. Now, in this situation, I'm like, I can't, you know? Didn't want to deal with it at all, didn't want to deal with her at all after what happened. So I end up going ahead and calling for a ride because at that point I was I think the calculated distance was around 13 or 14 miles away from where I lived at the time. So I had to call for a ride. Uh, Mom wasn't around to give a ride. I had to go ahead and call, a friend at the time's mom to go ahead and pick me up because of the situation, you know. And, not gonna lie, she got harder hits on me than anybody had, and I'm not really a stranger to fights, but, I don't actively go looking for them unless I get pushed to the point where I really I can't hold back, and keep in mind with that being said, I haven't gotten in a friendly, non-competitive fight since 2012, 2013, when I had somebody actively try to charge at me and, actually kick my face in. But ultimately in the situation, apparently I ended up going ahead and causing people to get outraged, because of me viewing, gender equality as, hey, if you go ahead and, a female goes and tells you to fight her like a man, you don't hold back, because that would be considered disrespectful to her. The reason why is because ultimately she doesn't want you to go ahead and use her gender as a reason for you actually withholding from, going at her the way that you would if she was biologically a male. Alright? Now, going ahead and twisting that, be like, oh, clearly a domestic abuser. Clearly. Alright? Clearly sexist. Clearly a woman beater. It's like, hey, how about this? How about teach your daughters to box? How about ultimately, stop going ahead and looking at a person's gender as far as their capability. Stop using that as a reason to go ahead and, keep from, competitive fighting, from actually going ahead and recognizing that, hey, gender shouldn't be the difference if somebody should be able to compete, Obviously, you have your controlling factors, like you have height differences, height divisions, weight divisions, you know? But ultimately, let's say, for example, if somebody ended up believing that you crossed such a huge line that despite the factor of them biologically being a female, that they want to throw some boxing gloves on with you and get in the ring, there should be nothing wrong with that. So to take that and construe that and be like, all right, clearly if that's what they personally believe and that's what they were taught, because of actually believing in equality gender-wise, then clearly they're a woman-beating, alcoholic piece of shit that's going to go ahead and perpetually lay hands on somebody that, wouldn't be able to go ahead and defend themselves. Well, a point that I've ended up going ahead and making, if, like, let's say, for example, you ended up in, a competition to go ahead and see, whether it be boxing competition, wrestling competition, whatever the case is. All right? If you're a guy, all right, like let's say you're a guy who basically would end up, not having a determined weight difference, or height difference and stuff, and you'd actually be within the same division as somebody who's biologically a female, there should be nothing keeping you from being able to compete with that person. All right? And to automatically, be like, oh, female, automatically gentle and dainty and cannot go ahead and defend themselves or protect themselves is absolutely absurd. Because if you were to go ahead and, like, a few examples, if you were to go ahead and get in the ring with, for anybody who's a wrestling fan, like way back in the day, China, or like Ronda Rousey, like, obviously some examples of, women that have, when it comes to competitive fighting, have actually showed they could do some damage, Ultimately, I don't think that if any of those women had been disrespected by a man, all right, and that actually ended up saying to them, Go ahead and fight me like a man. I want you to not hold back because I want to know when I win that I fucking earned it. And that afterwards it is automatically understood. The factor that you did not pull your punches. So that way, when I beat you like the bitch I'm gonna make you look like, it is absolutely understood. The factor that, you can't say, oh, I got lucky, or, oh, I took it easy on you because you're a girl. That antiquated thinking needs to go.